guest today is somebody I hold in very high regard. He's an award-winning creative writer. He's a banker. He's a clearing solution specialist. I'm smiling because I'm not sure what some of those are. And he's a design thinking enthusiast. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you for having me.
It's been a long way coming.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
So I'm actually reading two books. Normally what I do is that I read something fictional and something non-fictional. So for non-fiction, I'm writing a book called Win at Work and Succeed at Life by Michael Hyatt. And the fiction one I'm reading is the Book Thief. I've never read the Book Thief, and it's such a very popular book.
You're a banker. That's what we call you,
the banker who writes.
The banker who writes. You play rugby.
Yes,
you started playing like really seriously. I've seen you doing it. Everything you are doing right now is very time consuming and even brain and energy consuming. How do you do that? How do you fit?
I think it's about and somebody gave me a very good distinction. It's about priorities management. We think it's about time management, but actually it's about priorities management. And what I've realized is that whatever you want to do, if you decide I'm going to prioritize this, then you're going to find time for it. You'll never have time for everything. You just have to decide, what do I want to do right now? I'm here having this meeting. If I'm having this meeting, there's something else I've said no to. So you have to just be sure that you're saying no to the wrong things and yes to the right things.
But still, those three things look like a priority right now. How do you...
At the time that I'm playing rugby, mostly I play during the weekends or during the holidays. That's when I do my rugby. Of course, that time I'm not working in the bank. And when I'm in the office, I try to make sure that I'm as productive as possible in the office. So just try to maximize my time when I'm doing one thing or the other. If I switch to being a writer, I'll switch to being a writer 100%.
I remember during one of our chats, you told me that you wake up early to write. Do you still do that?
When I was writing my last book, I used to wake up early, right? I used to wake up at 4 5, spend 2 hours writing. But when I was rewriting it over the last few weeks, I found it easier to do it in the evening. So in my evening, because of the time zone challenges, because I work across different time zones, and by the time I'm shutting down, I'm already shutting down. Other markets are not shut down, so I just want to kind of cut my work and then switch my mind to now I'm doing my writing.
Okay.
Something else you didn't also mention is that I'm doing my HR certification, which is taking me a lot of time as well. So I do that over the evenings now. So a learning solution specialist is basically, we are in learning and development. This is the team that provides learning solutions for the bank. So if you think about what we do, the equivalent of Kenya is the KICD. The Kenyan Institute of Curriculum Development, but for the bank. So if you go to any bank, there's a curriculum that we use to train them. So we build those curriculum and execute the curriculum.
Okay. And design thinking enthusiasts?
So design thinking will actually be something that will require another meeting just like this one, because I can spend a lot of time talking about it. So design thinking is a way of creating solutions by putting the customer at the heart of it. So if you think about how we design our roads, we say we designed an expressway, or this road is very nice, but it really has not. But when you see in practice, you see people walking on the side of the road, walking in the mud there, it actually means that we've really not designed for the users. So everything has been designed, but really design thinking is when you start putting the customer or the end user at the heart of whatever you are designing. Whether it's a solution, it could be as big as a road or as small as a mouse. So the mouse is designed with that particular functionality in mind when the person is going to use it.
So it's a bit like the small print that favors the customer, yeah?
Yes, it is now putting the customer at the heart of everything that we do. And if you think about even airports, so one of the best airports in the world is Changi Airport in Singapore. And it's been designed for all. If you're handicapped, you're not going to struggle. If you are visually impaired, you're not going to struggle. If you don't know any language, you're not going to struggle. It's designed for the end user in mind, not just as a building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get to books. You have written a lot of books. I have a few here. I have five of them, but they're much more than that. My books are well used. I've had his books for many, many years because I've loved Kombani's work for so many years. How many books have you published?
So this, I always have to keep counting.
Mm-hmm.
So by myself, I've done 14. Yeah, so other collaborations with other writers as well.
So you're talking about
21 23,
books.
yeah.
20. Oh my God.
Those are the published ones.
Yeah.
The others are still work in progress.
Okay. And you've been at it. The last Villains of Molo was your first book.
Yes,
this
it was.
Done in?
It was published in, it was written in 2002 and it was only released in 2008.
Okay.
So this is not the first edition. There was a first edition, which we moved away from that publisher and moved over to Longhorn. So Longhorn bought the rights to the book.
Okay. Yeah. So take us through the journey of writing The Last Villains of Molo. I'd like to know what gave you the idea. Did you always know that you were going to be a writer and that's how you started penning this? How did you, because Kombani is like, I call him the poster boy of the publishing because he's one of the few fiction writers who've managed to sort of entice the publisher, the traditional publishers. How did you get to this and having your first book published by a traditional publisher?
It's a longer story. So if I start the story, I'll start from way before.
Yeah.
So I used to live in Molo. I lived in Molo for 15 years of my life. And some of the events that happened in the book are actually things that I saw with my eyes, just that I was a bit young. I was 10 years old, I think, when the clashes in 1992 were happening. When I went to campus to Kenyatta University, I saw an advert in a newspaper that they're calling out for short stories, and the price is 5,000 Kenya shillings. That was a lot of money. It still is a lot of money, but 2001 it was a lot of money. So I wrote 2 short stories, and I gave them to my lecturer called Gashanja Kiai. He's now arrested. I gave him, and I told him, could you just read this and tell me if it makes sense? But instead of him giving me feedback, he came to the class and he told the class, gentlemen and ladies, I've seen the best short stories ever written, and we're not going to have this double lesson. Instead, we're going to read all of us. So now we actually got the class reading. Wow. And that's the first time I was writing just because I wanted to win 5,000 books. Yeah. But then that's the first thing that came to me as now I'm going to be now I can actually make this a reality. That was the moment. And then afterwards, I met him and he gave me the publisher, the gentleman called Jimmy Makosi, who was a publishing firm in Westlands. Told me, go and speak to him. These short stories need to be published. So I went and spoke to Jimmy Makosi, and he told me he likes the short stories. His challenge is that there's really no market for short stories in Kenya. A lot of short stories will not sell. Yeah. So either I get a collection of short stories and then we publish as an anthology, or I think about a longer novel. So I went back and I told him, I don't think I have a novel, because by this time we had met, I had already started thinking about doing a third short story about the first day of the clashes in Molo. So another piece of context is that, remember the clashes in Molo were 1992, and there's been clashes every year since, every 5 years. Yeah. So in 1997, there was a family friend who were chased out of their home in Kamaora in Molo, and they came to live in our family home in Joro. So I used to interact with them there a lot, the old man, and he used to tell me about the very first day of the clashes. So I wanted to turn that into a short story. So now I told this publisher, I have this idea for a short story. Can I turn it into a novel? And he said, yeah. But I also told him that I'm very worried because, we are in the Moi regime, and I'm worried about, I have to go to exile like Koigi wa Mwere. And he told me, don't worry, I'm an editor. I'll remove all the bad parts, but you just come back with the story. Yeah. So I went back and started doing more research. And within 6 months, I had the book, I had the manuscript, and I gave it to him. The story of how actually really got to him is another different story altogether, because I had it bound, gave it to him. He read it the first 2 pages. He just saw his 2 young men playing pool. He said that nobody wants to read about men playing pool, and he threw it away. And he was supposed to go to Eldoret and he decided to pick a couple of manuscripts he was going to go and edit. When he got to Eldoret, he discovered that actually he has my manuscript. So he had no option but to read it.
Oh, he carried the wrong
manuscript.
the
wrong manuscript. So when he read it, by Monday, he had started looking for me.
Wow.
Through the secretary. I didn't have a phone. They had to look to get me through other people. Finally, I got to him, and then we got to start talking about publishing. Nevertheless, we stayed there for about 6 or 7 years without the book being published. Because it was only published in 2008 after the post-election violence. So a lot of people think that I've written about the post-election violence. No. But that was a trigger for him because he felt that we didn't have enough. The country was not ready to speak about tribal politics the way I've written about it. Because in the book I said, kill Kalenjins, kill Kikuyus. It was very graphic. So he didn't feel as if we were ready. But post the post-election violence, he felt that it's a conversation that needs to be had. And that's when he started publishing it. We stayed with him for about 4 years. And we disagreed because I was not receiving the royalties that I thought I needed to receive. And
but the
by
book
that
was
time,
selling.
yes, but the book was selling. It was already been studied at the university level. And when I talked to Longhorn, they agreed to buy it. Initially, I had sent it to Longhorn, another publisher. They had said no, can't publish it. But by that time, they actually said no, we're going to. So now it was released as a new cover, new design.
This is the new cover, yeah?
That's the new cover now, yeah.
Okay. Then you wrote, what came second?
Then came second. So remember remember I told you about the 2 short stories that I had done early. So because of the same challenge of how do you get short stories to be a novel, I decided to now kind of lengthen the short stories, and it came to this book.
And it came to Den of Iniquities.
Den of Iniquities, yeah.
Because your books are, I don't know, I'd like to sort of know how your mind works. We understand this one was triggered by what happened during Moi era, but this one is still not as, I don't know, maybe because I love like happy endings. Not that I don't love this, because your books, they just get me reading until I stop. But you have a way of sort of getting the dark side of humanity. Is that your mind?
That was the first 2 books. And one of the feedback pieces that I received was that I need to really consider whether I want to be known as a dark writer. So if you see Phones and Prayers,
these 2,
I went on the other extreme of just do something that is going to make people happy. But sometimes you see some of these societal issues that we have right now. Is there really a happy ending? There's a lot of mob justice happening, police brutality. Is there really a happy ending? So I don't want to sugarcoat life. That's why you really show it the way it is. But then again, you have to also have a balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's coming next? This what was
Focus actually was my 3rd novel.
This was your 3rd novel.
But I didn't release it until this year.
I'd like you to tell me about your relationship with the publishers without, of course, slandering them, because we don't want to slander them. But and over time, I've sort of come to understand why they do what they do to us. But how have you managed to stay with them? Have you ever sat down and thought, okay, this is I can't take this? Or have you always had this lovely relationship with them?
It's not always lovely, and sometimes you have to use threats to get some of the books out, because you find that if you self-publish, you could have the book out faster. The challenge that I have is because of the things that you mentioned in the beginning. I don't have time.
You don't have time.
I don't have the capacity. I know I can self-publish, but I don't have the capacity to start. Somebody calls me, I want a book, and I'm in Kisii or Kisumu. How do I get the book to that person? It's very difficult distribution. That's why I give to the publishers. So what I try to do is to ensure, because those publishers are human. They're human beings around that, and they want the same thing. There's no publisher who invests $1 million shillings to release this book without expecting that it's good. So all of you want to succeed. So what I do is I try and work with them and ensure that we are agreeing on some commonalities, like what is going to be the launch plan. Like we've agreed we're not going to do book launches, because I find book launches not be the best use of money. You book a expensive hotel, do all the branding, or invite your friends, they come and drink your wine, and you have 10 or 20 copies. So I prefer using that budget to do book releases. And like for this book, we actually did a trailer, a book trailer.
Yeah, I remember
and
the
we
one
sent
with,
it with John Sibi.
Yes, it was beautifully
And
done.
we sent it through WhatsApp, and by the end of the day, we had about 600 orders, just from the trailer itself. And you can't get 600 copies in a book launch. Yeah. So just trying to work with the publishers. They are human beings. Try to come together with them, agree on some editorial things that you have. You also have to agree that they have their own editorial standards. So you have to come down from your level. There's a character that you really wanted, you really love. They tell you this character is not helping the story. They need to go. You have to agree what are you going to compromise. Also having an end view, because what I agree with the publisher is that this book is going to be released in 2025. I'd rather know that and then do other things as opposed to not knowing, and then we kind of agree on a kind of a plan. This is the marketing plan, distribution plan, and everything. And I found a good relationship with that because they're human beings.
They are.
So I don't think about.
I used to be very bitter with them actually because of my initial relationship with them. But I think I've calmed down and I've also come to look at them as humans and what we want eventually. Having said that, I know for sure that you have moved more books than your publishers.
Yes, because one of the things that I agree, I also tell upcoming authors is you need to build a brand, you need to build a platform, and the platform could be social media, could be anything. I have a friend of mine who goes in his car. He has about 2,000 copies of his book. He goes to church, says hi, but there I'm an author. He gives you a book. He sells a book. So you as a writer, you are your own personal brand. People buy the book because it is you. When the publisher is releasing a book, he's releasing my book, yes. He's also releasing Shiko's book. He's also releasing JSO's book. So he has divided attention. But when people follow you on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, they're following you as a person. So you're best ambassador. So for me, I try and make sure that I'm the best ambassador. I respond to people asking me about my book. I direct them to where the books are. If you ask me where can I get your book, I check myself with the textbook center, Nuria, other people. Do you have this book? And then I direct them to that person. That's you have to be an ambassador and a salesperson.
Especially the salesperson did that. I think that's what really messes most authors.
Because it's a challenge, because you have to, because those are two different skills. One is creating. Creating the book is one skill. Selling it is, you have to really get out of your comfort zone. And for me, because I've been a salesperson in the bank as well,
so it's easier, natural for you.
It's even easier than selling loans.
I can imagine. Do you where do you think you've moved most books on the social media sites?
Twitter.
Twitter is where you've moved.
Twitter is where I have more conversations, and that's where I have a lot more sales on Twitter, and then Facebook. LinkedIn, I get bulk. So somebody says I want to buy 50 copies for my school library. That's when you get bulk.
Okay, I should start going to LinkedIn because I don't.
It's very powerful because then you get people who are really professionals. It's a professional network.
A few jokers.
Yes, a few. Of course, everywhere there is also jokers and serious people.
When I don't know if I've ever told you this in one of our many conversations, but you sort of were the trigger for me publishing, and probably not directly, but there's something you had. What was it? What was that we had at the junction?
The junction. It was called the Authors Buffet.
Yes, the Authors Buffet.
Yes.
And I remember I turned up, and there were a few people there. Some were helpful, some were really absolutely unhelpful. One day I'll tell you who was absolutely unhelpful. I remember having Kina Binyavanga there, and that was one of the helpful people. What did such stuff do for you? Why did you do it?
So why I was doing it is because I felt as if when you talk about the book fair, it's a very nice avenue for writers and also for books. But I find it's a bit skewed towards educational books. So a lot of people who don't do educational books per se don't have a voice, don't have an audience to interact with. They want to interact with the authors, with their audience. They don't get that opportunity. And for us, for the chance to actually come together as authors, let's meet our audience in a public place and let's have an exchange. And for me, what it did for me, apart from enhancing the brand as well, it also helped me to also connect a lot with a lot of other writers as well. And we still have, I think that was the first time that we really got very close with CBO Kumu, and we started, because that's the time that we started a mentoring relationship with him. And since after that success of Authors Buffet, we worked with the Daystar University, and we spoke with Dr. now Professor Wandia Njoya, and she actually hosted us. We actually built a course called Creatives Academy, 13-week course, looking at all the ways of getting published, from how do you get inspiration to how do you protect your work. And it was professionals. It was a course for writers, for writers. Yeah.
But now it's of course not there because you're no longer.
It's not there because it's not there because it requires a lot of work, which I don't have at the moment.
Okay. I think that's sad because I mean, look at me. That's where I got that's why it hit me that this is a thing that can be done. You've won several awards. Please take us through them.
Yeah, so this book won the Wahamutahi Prize for Literature, and I wrote it for that particular award. So the thing is that in 2017, there was an article by Mbogu Anganga who said that that year, the committee in the book fair have decided not to award any book for the Wahamutahi Prize because it does not meet the criteria. None of the entries meets the criteria, and the criteria is humor, because the award is built for the late Wahome Mutahi. So it has to be humorous.
It has to be.
So I told myself, I've always been writing these dark stories about clashes and police, but let me write something humorous. So that was my first attempt at it. And it won the award.
Mr. Muturaman there.
Yes, Muturaman. I put all my stupidity in this book. I just said, amazing, what is the one thing that could happen to a Mutura person? And that's why that's one of the things that really, for me, it was impactful. I also wrote another book called Do or Do, which won the Jomo Kenyatta Prize for Literature. We don't have it yet.
I know, I have it. I have it somewhere.
It won at the same time, So Do or Do was an accidental book. Accidental in the sense that I had been asked by Peter Kimani to be part of a collection of an anthology that was being done called Nairobi Noah. And he told me that he's working with several writers. He mentioned some big names like Gogi wa Thiong'o. And at first I was very scared. What if I'm going to be in the book, same anthology as Gogi wa Thiong'o, what am I going to write about? But he told me that he had put people in different segments. So JSO would write about Westlands, Gogi wa Thiong'o would write about Limuru, just something around Nairobi, but different authors were going to talk about something different. And Stanley Gazemba, of course, Kangemi. So he told me he's going to ask me to do something for Dandora, for the Eastland side. So I went to, because I've gone to Eastland, but I've never lived in Eastland. And slums are different. So if you think about slums that are there in Dandora, they're not the same as the one I used to live in Gong Road. So I asked some of my friends. I have some friends who are part of the Ukoflani Maumau crew in Dandora. So I asked one of them called Jirongi, and he told me he could take me there for a day. So I went there for a day. They were playing football. There was a tournament that he was supporting, and I was there with him. We spent a day there. By the time I was living there, I had a story that was complete in my mind, and I had a novel, a young adult novel, and those are the two. So Do or Do was that accidental novel. So it won the Jomo Kenyatta Prize. And then there's another book called Finding Colombia, which won the BAT Award for Young African Literature. It didn't win in Kenya, but it won in the Africa side.
Were you based in Ghana?
In Ghana, we went to Ghana where it won. That was for me, actually that was the biggest award that I've ever received, because it is 10,000 Canadian dollars.
Nice. That's a lot of money. I'm gonna do
it was a lot of money, It was a lot of money. I remember it was 760,000 Kenyan shillings.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Are you after more awards?
Right now, I don't write for awards. If I win an award, it's okay, but that will not be the motivation for
it.
It.
Won't be like this, like the
So,
way you wrote this particularly for the Wamhome Mutahi.
I still do, and now I see there's an award that is coming up, the Miles Moreland Award. I'm going to submit, but I want to write because where I am now, I have an audience, people who listen to me, who buy my books. I want to keep them happy, keep them satisfied. So I've written a book that is close to this from let me use the word stupidity perspective. It's just a nice feel-good story that put the rich against the poor, and have that kind of tussle. That's what I've done right now, and I'm hoping to submit it for the Homemdahi Prize again. I'm also hoping to go a lot more international based on my international experience. Just get characters outside of Kenya as well. Yeah.
Would you like your books translated?
Of course, because that's a different audience. We tried with the late Ken Walibora. We actually had an agreement that we are going to translate each other's books, so Hindi and English. But of course, it didn't happen. I've not thought about other countries as well. Okay. I've not thought about it, but I'm open to it. If it happens, it happens.
Some of these things, not something you're actively.
Yes, some of these things are a surprise to me because when I started writing The Last Villains of Molo, my biggest, what I really wanted to do was to see my book in a bookshop. I never thought about that, one day I'm going to be here talking about my book on TV,
Yeah, but the thing is, you've had it so much easier than most of us because with the advantage of the publisher, your books are, of course, going to go straight to bookshops, as we have to go through a lot of hurdles and looking down on us. You've won you're now over 40, yeah?
Yes.
You're now over 40. There was the under 40.
Yes, the top 40, under 40. That was 2015.
Did you win that for the books or for banking or for both?
For what they said is that it's for the contribution to the creative arts industry. Remember that time you had done Authors Buffet.
Yeah.
We had done Creatives Academy.
Yes.
I had already established myself as a thought leader talking about writing and publishing in Kenya, because a lot of people come to me asking how do I get published. So I used to write a lot of items around it.
Okay. And I know you mentor. Is that like planned, or do you just wait for them to come to you, or do you have like a structured way of mentoring? So previously I used to, people used to come to me and tell me, I have a manuscript, can you read it for me? Or could you tell me tips on how to get published? And I had time. Now I don't have that much time. Yeah. So what I do is that I support the Writers Guild. So I've been mentoring the team that is managing the Writers Guild, because I find that's why now I add more value. Then they can be able now to help to help the rest. And I'm now part of the advisory council for the Writers Guild. So that's why I'm putting all my energies now. And you're in a trustee. Trustee for what was it? Is it the same guys? Writers Guild. Writers Guild. Yeah. Okay. Wow. The thing is, sometimes I don't even know how to put it, because you're at 20-something books, maybe not yet all published. Do you have like a number in your head that you won't stop? I know we don't retire as creatives unless our brain goes, but do you have like a number? My number was 50. 50. And the reason is because one of the lecturers that taught me is called Dr. Ezekiel Alembi. He died at 50, and he had 50 books. And we kept wondering, how do you write 50 books? I had only one book, and I thought I had already given my everything to the book. Yes. And I remember once he sent us, we were just young guys from the university. He sent us to his publisher to collect a check. And it was a check for about 50,000. But we kept looking, how do you get out? Wow. 50,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And for me, that was the push to say, maybe when I write 50 books, I'm going to get 50,000. Yes. And that was my push. And here you are, you've gotten a lot more than that. I don't know how much, but I'm sure it's way more than that. There's a time you had said, I can't remember where you said that, but you said you want to buy a V8 engine with money from books. Did that happen? So it's not happened yet. It's not happened yet. Maybe it could happen because one of my books is a school text. Yes. Maybe it could happen. But now the funny thing with the life is that as soon as you can afford something like that,
things change in your life.
It doesn't look
like,
that
where I stay, I don't need a car. In fact, it is so expensive to have a car in Singapore. It's so expensive. And then also the public service system works so well. You don't need a car. So now even if I have a V8, I'm probably
just
not, maybe I wait until I come back, and maybe that's when I'm going to have the V8.
Okay. Oh, so
it's a Land Cruiser V8.
So Singapore is what we all should aspire to be, yeah?
Yes, we need to aspire. It's something that we need to aspire. But as I was telling somebody yesterday, we keep saying we want to be the Singapore of Africa, but we need to do what they did to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. How is the literary scene in Singapore?
It's vibrant. It's very vibrant. But not as vibrant as ours. Ours is quite vibrant, because I'm seeing book launches every day. A lot of
tell me about what you think about that, because I know when you started it was quite slow.
Yes,
we didn't have a lot of self-published authors.
When it started it was quite slow, because we didn't have the publishers were like kind of gatekeeping. There was a kind of a gatekeeping that only published books published by traditional publishers would get to a bookshop. So being the only route to publishing, it kept a lot of people who want to self-publish away. And then you have to really dilute your content if you wanted to, go through the gatekeepers. But now I see there's a lot of vibrancy right now, because people are actually bypassing the publisher. Initially, there was very poor work that was being done, very poor editing, very poor, pages were. We were not serious. We are not very serious. Poor editing, poor design, poor quality of paper. But now we're actually getting better quality books out there than even what the traditional publishers are getting out. I've seen some books that are international standards. They're much, much better than what we have with the traditional publishers. So I see that vibrancy. And then the other thing I'm saying is a lot of coming together. So you're having a book launch, I come to your book launch, you're having a book reading, people coming to each other's
the young people
events.
Are active. They've decided they've got each other. I've actually been watching them, and it's been pretty amazing, because I remember, except like for you guys, and like you, I know you've always kind of been there, and a few others. The gatekeeping was not only with publishers, it was also with a few influential authors who sort of kept
Yeah. And you kept being told, if you're not part of this clique, you're not existing as a writer. Exactly. And somebody told me that to my face.
No, I think I was also told that in not so many words, and I blame myself, because I could have researched, but I also blame them, because the mistakes I made with my first two books would not have happened if I had someone to talk to. So, but I agree. It's amazing. It's been amazing to watch all the changes going on, and I think we can only get better.
Yeah, we can only get better now. It's a lot of good vibes. We didn't have Facebook during my time. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have all those. Right now, people are actually just doing the writing on. See, my friend Charles. Charles, the way he's done is that Chanchori, what he's done is that just using Facebook, he's able to build a following. He's able to sell books. He doesn't need a publisher.
No, he doesn't need a publisher. And now they want him.
Now the good thing is that now he comes to the publisher and he comes with terms. He says it's not like us who are told, you have to get 10% and nothing more than 10%. Him, he actually comes and now negotiates, because he has something on the table.
They know he can be okay without them. You are a mentor, but also you mentor. You've been mentored, and I know you've mentioned Kimani and you've mentioned CB. What kind of relationship do you have with them? How have they helped you?
A lot, because they become my sounding boards for things that I want to do. Even if I'm writing a book, I'll go to let's say Peter Kimani or John Sibiokumu. And say this, I'm writing this, what do you think about it? And they challenged me something. I wanted to write my memoirs. I know things that JSO has asked me, before you write, just think about the why first. Why do you want to write it? Is it only because every important person in life has written their memoirs? Or what? So me sitting back to actually start thinking about, why do I want to write my memoirs? It's going to make my memoirs much better. Similarly, because JSO acts as both as a mentor and also as an editor. So like the latest book that I wrote, I sent to him, he edited it and gave it back to me with a lot of changes to be done. So that also is something that that's how we work together.
Yeah.
So we also accountability partners for each other. I know because Peter is writing his book right now. We keep challenging each other. Where are you on this book?
Yeah.
Similarly, Jay, so he calls me every day. What's happening? Why you've not written today? So sometimes I know that he's calling because he's asking me who I am.
Where
I have to write something.
You
at
have
least,
to write something. The pressure is real.
And it becomes kind of reverse mentoring as well.
Okay. Yeah. Where would you like, apart from the 50 books, where would you like to be literary in about 10 years?
So that's a question that's very difficult for me to, even if you ask me, even as a banker, not just as a literary. It's something that I normally struggle with. And the reason I struggle with it is because, like I said, I didn't plan to be here. I didn't, all I wanted was to see my book. Actually, it was a book called Book Point. It was in Moy Avenue. I was seeing those books displayed there. And for me, that was my goal. I just want my book to be there so that when I pass by Moy Avenue, I just see it. So getting to where I am right now as a writer, or even as a banker, I just wanted to, I just want to, something to do while I was doing my, because I used to be in theater before I joined the bank. I used to be part of the traveling theater.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do. And then suddenly I'm where I am right now. And if you ask me where do I want to be in 5-10 years, it's a struggle for me. But I just want to continue.
You're gonna write and give it your best and then write the way.
I just want to continue building on my skills, because it's no longer now about roles. Even at our organization, we're moving away from roles to skills. So I'm thinking, what new skill can I add on? What new certification can I add on? So that's why I did all this learning about design thinking. Because it is something new happening in the industry. I need to think about how to design things. Even design, even a farm. We have a farm. Even how do you design that farm? It's all design thinking. So what other new skills am I adding to my thing? Yeah.
So for me, it's about. Want to be an author?
My daughter writes very well, and she I think she'll be the author. My son also writes. Yeah, I don't know if they want to be authors.
Do they listen to your advice?
Kids, they may not listen, but they acknowledge.
They acknowledge and they see.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I try to bring them to places where I am, come to events with me. So they kind of get exposure to.
That is true. I do the same with my kids when I can, and they go back home thinking I'm gonna be the next big thing, but sometimes after about a month and 10 pages later they've abandoned. So
when
they
have
realize, a lot of unfinished books at home.
When they realize it's not as glamorous, because everything, so it's nice to have written, but the writing itself is not easy.
Okay. We're almost done, but I'll choose any of these books and read for us a passage or two.
Okay.
So that we get
I'll read this because it always amazes me whenever I speak to students in the university, and I'll tell you the context. They were now approaching Gando. The slum lay wedged in between Santak Estate, Key West, and ghettos, the latter two being shanty dwellings as well. It was divided into two by one major road with many smaller outlets that led deeper into the rusty mabati and mud houses. You could smell the decay in the air. The whole place smelled like a pigsty. A sewer had evidently burst ahead, and a thick greenish viscosity flowed along the road, weaving in some places. A heavily pregnant goat was nibbling at rubbish from a foul-smelling dump beside the road. Across its protuberant belly, someone had scrawled, "Ask for transport," in charcoal. Nancy laughed loudly, though the others did not seem to find anything amusing. Now, can I give the context? So the context for that is that when I wrote this book, normally when the publisher has done all the typesetting and everything, they give you the final part for you to read. And he told me I cannot add anything because it's already been typeset. So the only thing I'm going to accept is a typo or anything else. But you can't add a paragraph or remove a paragraph because it will have to be typeset again, and I can't afford it. So I said, okay. And then when I went out after reading it many times and making all the changes, I saw a heavily pregnant goat. It was white, and somebody had scrolled, "Ask for transport."
Ask for transport.
And I told myself, this has to be in the book because this is so much. so much in character in the book.
Yeah.
So I called him and I told him, can I just add one paragraph? So luckily, it didn't affect the pagination, and therefore he allowed it.
Short.
Now, why that is important to this is that when students are reading my book, they always ask me, either ask me or they whenever they're doing their discussion on everything, this comes up. And one day I was speaking to students at the university, and they were asking me, what is the significance of the goat in the story? And when I asked them, what do you mean? What do you think? They it represents a country full of hope, full of energy. And I laugh because for me, I didn't put that in the story. I just saw a goat. You
saw a goat, and it looked like a nice paragraph.
Yeah, it looked like a nice paragraph, and which talks to the way we are taught. We are taught to think about themes. We taught to, and that's why some of our young children or young adults don't like reading, because if I start reading and saying I want to find poverty, violence here in this book, I'm not going to enjoy the story. So I'm making a deliberate effort when I'm writing my story not to think about the theme first, to think about the characters, because we are all characters. We are all here in this room. So everyone has a role to play. Everyone has a life. If you think about the cameraman, he has a life of his own. He has a girlfriend or a wife or somebody else, or maybe two, and they are maybe fighting at each other, fighting with each other. There's a story within each character. That's what I want to bring in the story, as opposed to let me put the theme of marriage and then put the theme in the story. Which I hope our education system is going to really help us to start enjoying stories for the sake of enjoying stories. Not because there's a theme.
Or because you need to be asked the questions in
an
exam. How do you, now that we talk, you said something about the characters, how do you develop characters? Do you develop as you go along, or do you have do you know exactly what your character is going to be before you set off?
So what I do is that I use a technique called mind mapping. So if you see my room, there's always be sticky notes and whiteboards. I use a lot of whiteboards. So I draw physically all my characters. So if you look at this character, this was actually something I had started drawing, because I want to see, what does my character look like? He's a strong man. He has something in the background. What is happening? What is it? This is his past in the background. So how do I? So I visualize it first before I start writing. So I draw the characters. There's a girl here in the story, very beautiful girl. I draw. Then I do a lot of mind mapping to see, what does this character mean? This character, how do they look like? Even here, there are two characters. One is a guy who is a hawker. The other one is a rich man's son. And I needed to really be sure, how do they look like? Because it is important to the story later on. So their physical features. So I draw and I make sure I put all the connections. I do a lot of mind mapping on that. That's before I start writing the story.
Do you ever change?
Sometimes they change, because sometimes characters take a life of their own. Sometimes
that's
characters.
Usually what I struggle with. I give up trying to map up my characters from the word go, because I write with intention. I start with the intention of one, and then I end up with a totally different.
They do. The last novel that I just wrote, the one I just finished writing, there's a lady who started out as a very, I thought she was a weak lady. She's small and everything. But as the story progresses, she actually becomes very, very strong. So I had to go back and actually make her strong from the word go. She's the one that everyone, when she speaks, everyone says, she's a tough one in the group.
When do you decide the titles?
Sometimes some books I decide immediately. Like this one, from the time I started writing, it was going to be Hocus Pocus. Den of Iniquities, we struggled a bit, because it was Den of Inequities or Iniquities with an I. And if you see some parts inside, actually says Den of Iniquities, because we still could not agree with the publisher. So some of them we work with. Pawns and Players was a big challenge for us, because it was called Offalman. So offal, is Mutura, the intestines and all those kind of things. And again,
but this is totally apt after you read the story of
Pawns and Players. But again, the power of listening to mentors. JSO actually had a very big problem with the title. It said Offalman already kicks you, puts you to think it's going to be something bad already. So we really debated about this book, about the title. So some titles come easily, others
they don't.
take a lot of time.
Okay.
Yeah. But I always nice to have a working title. Yeah.
Okay. When
it might change.
It might change.
Yeah, or not.
It might not.
Yeah.
Because I have so much to ask you, but time not on our side.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have come to the end of this program. I say unfortunately because I can never have enough of speaking to KK. But I hope you enjoyed listening and watching us as much as we've enjoyed making it. We hope you've taken a few, tips on how to be the best writer you would like to be. I'd like to thank our crew, thank Kombani, and I would love to remind you that down there is a subscription button. Please press it and see you next time. Thank you very much.